Hello, I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and we're ready for our June the 1st lesson in the Course in Miracles workbook for students. From the original edition, The Power of Decision is My Own, lesson 152. The power of decision is my own. You get to make the choices in your life, and look how much power we have. He's going to explain this first paragraph. It's almost unbelievable to a lot of people, but let's listen to this. The power of decision is my own. No one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. No one suffers pain except his choice elects this state for him. No one can grieve, nor fear, nor think him sick unless these are the outcomes that he wants. And no one dies without his own consent. Nothing occurs but represent your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. Here is your world, complete in all details. Here is its whole reality for you, and it is here only. And it is only here salvation is. You may believe that this position is extreme and too inclusive to be true, yet can truth have exceptions? If you have the gift of everything, can loss be real? Can pain be part of peace? Or grief of joy? Can fear and sickness enter in a mind where love and perfect holiness abide? Truth must be all-inclusive if it be the truth at all. Accept no opposite and no exceptions, for to do so is to contradict the truth entirely. Salvation is the recognition that the truth is true and nothing else is true. Salvation is the recognition that the truth is true and nothing else is true. This you have heard before, but may not yet accept both parts of it. Without the first, that truth is true, the second has no meaning, that nothing else is true. But without the second is the first no longer true. Truth cannot have an opposite. This cannot be too often said and thought about. Truth cannot have an opposite. What is the opposite of truth? Well, you might think, falsehood, lies, this new word they're using now, misinformation. But no, the truth can't have an opposite, because those are illusions, and illusions are not opposite to truth. Truth cannot have an opposite. This cannot be too often said and thought about. For if what is not true is true as well as what is true, then part of truth is false, and truth has lost its meaning. Nothing but the truth is true, and what is false is false. This is the simplest of distinctions, yet the most obscure. This is the simplest of distinctions, and yet the most obscure. But not because it is a difficult distinction to perceive. It is concealed behind a vast array of choices which do not appear to be entirely your own. And thus the truth appears to have some aspects that belie consistency, but do not seem to be but contradictions introduced by you. As God created you, you must remain unchangeable, and transitory states by definition false. And that includes all shifts in feeling, alterations in conditions of the body and the mind, in all awareness and in all response. This is the all-inclusiveness which sets the truth apart from falsehood, and the false kept separate from the truth as what it is. Is it not strange that you believe to think you made the world you see is arrogance? God made it not. Of this you can be sure. What can he know of the ephemeral, the changeable? What can he know of the ephemeral, the sinful and the guilty, the afraid, the suffering and lonely? and the mind that lives within a body that must die. You but accuse him of insanity to think he made a world where such things seem to have reality. He is not mad, yet only madness makes a world like this. To think that God made chaos contradicts his will, invented opposites to truth, and suffers death to triumph over life. All this is arrogance. Humility would see at once these things are not of him. And can you see what God created not? To think you can is merely to believe you can perceive what God willed not to be. And what could be more arrogant than this? Let us today be truly humble and accept what we have made as what it is. The power of decision is our own. Decide but to accept your rightful place as co-creator of the universe, and all you think you made will disappear. What rises to awareness then will be all that there ever was, eternally as it is now, and it will take the place of self-deceptions made but to usurp the altar to the Father and the Son. Today we practice true humility, abandoning the false pretense by which the ego seeks to prove it arrogant. Only the ego can be arrogant, but truth is humble in acknowledging its mightiness, its changelessness, and its eternal wholeness, all-encompassing, God's perfect gift to his beloved Son. We lay aside the arrogance which says that we are sinners, guilty and afraid, ashamed of what we are, and we lift our hearts in true humility instead to him who has created us immaculate, like to himself in power and in love. The power of decision is our own, and we accept of him that which we are and humbly recognize the Son of God. To recognize God's Son implies as well that all self-concepts have been laid aside and recognized as false. Their arrogance has been perceived, and in humility, the radiance of God's Son, his gentleness, his perfect sinlessness, his Father's love, his right to heaven and release from hell, are joyously accepted as our own. Now do we join in glad acknowledgement that lies are false and only truth is true. We think of truth alone as we arise and spend 5 minutes practicing its ways, encouraging our frightened minds with this: the power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. So we think of truth alone as we arise and spend 5 minutes practicing its ways, encouraging our frightened minds with this: the power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. So we're going to encourage our frightened minds with this. And when we get up in the morning for 5 minutes, and when we go to bed tonight for 5 minutes. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. Then will we wait in silence, giving up all self-deceptions as we humbly ask ourselves that he reveal himself to us. And he who never left will come again to our awareness, grateful to restore his home to God as it was meant to be. In patience wait for him throughout the day, and hourly invite him with the words with which the day began, concluding it with this same invitation to yourself. God's voice will answer, for he speaks for you and for your Father. He will substitute the peace of God for all your frantic thoughts, the truth of God for self-deceptions, and God's Son for your illusions of yourself. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. Okay, let us go take a look at, and remember, we're going to do 2 5-minute meditations on practice periods, as he calls them, and then an hourly reminder throughout the day. We will tell ourselves, the power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. Okay, and we're ready for, in our text reading, pleasure and pain, which is the subsection, probably be counted number 1 really, but they don't have it marked at all. Pleasure and pain, and it's under in chapter 19, Beyond the Body, section 5, the obstacles to peace, and this is under the second obstacle, B, the belief the body is valuable for what it offers. And then he has this subsection, pleasure and pain. So we'll read that starting in paragraph 68. And while you're turning there, let me tell you about the Beam's yellow pear tomato. I can't help but think of my friend Jerry, who's gone on, left this planet. He used to always grow these little pear tomatoes. Our favorite yellow pear tomato. This is the Beam's yellow pear tomato. This variety bears an endless supply of tasty 1.5-inch fruits, introduced to Seed Savers Exchange by John Hartman of Indiana. It is ideal for salads or just for snacking. Indeterminate, 70 to 80 days from transplant. And that's the Beam's yellow pear tomato from the Seed Savers Exchange. Okay, pleasure and pain. Your little part is but to give the Holy Spirit the whole idea of sacrifice, and to accept the peace he gave instead without the limits which would hold its extension back, and so would limit your awareness of it. For what he gives must be extended if you would have its limitless power and use it for the Son of God's release. It is not this you would be rid of, and having it, you cannot limit it. If peace is homeless, so are you, and so am I. And he who is our home is homeless with us. Is this your will? Would you forever be a wanderer in search of peace? Would you invest your hope of peace and happiness in what must fail? Faith in the eternal is always justified, for the eternal is forever kind, infinite in its patience, and wholly loving. It will accept you wholly and give you peace, yet it can unite only with what already is at peace in you, immortal as itself. The body can bring you neither peace nor turmoil, neither pain nor joy. It is a means and not an end. So the body is a means and not an end. It has no purpose of itself, but only what is given to it. The body will seem to be whatever is the means for reaching the goal that you assign to it. Only the mind can set a purpose, and only mind can see the means for its accomplishment and justify its use. Peace and guilt are both conditions of the mind to be attained. Peace and guilt are both conditions of the mind to be attained. And these conditions are the home of the emotion which called them forth, and therefore is compatible with them. But think you which it is that is compatible with you. 70. Here is your choice. and it is free. But all that lies in it will come with it, and what you think you are can never be apart from it. The body is the great seeming betrayer of faith. In it lies disillusionment and the seeds of faithlessness, but only if you ask of it what it cannot give. Can your mistake be reasonable grounds for depression and disillusionment and for retaliative attack on what you think has failed you? Use not your error as the justification for your faithlessness. You have not sinned, but you have been mistaken in what is faithful, and the correction of your mistake will give you grounds for faith. The correction of your mistake will give you grounds for faith. 71. It is impossible to seek for pleasure through the body and not find pain. It is impossible to seek for pleasure through the body and not find pain. Quite a statement, isn't it? It is essential that this relationship be understood, for it is one the ego sees as proof of sin. It is not really punitive at all. It is but the inevitable result of equating yourself with the body, which is the invitation to pain. Remember, we're not bodies. We're eternal spirits, one with God, one with love, and one with each other. For it invites fear to enter and become your purpose. The attraction of guilt must enter with it, and whatever fear directs the body to do is therefore painful. It will share the pain of all illusions, and the illusion of pleasure will be the same as pain. 72. Is not this inevitable? Under fear's orders, the body will pursue guilt, serving its master, whose attraction to guilt maintains the whole illusion of its existence. This, then, is the attraction of pain. Ruled by this perception, the body becomes the servant of pain, seeking it dutifully and obeying the idea that pain is pleasure. It is this idea that underlies all the ego's heavy investment in the body, and it is this insane relationship which it keeps hidden, yet feeds upon. To you, it teaches that the body's pleasure is happiness, yet to itself it whispers, it is death. Why should the body be anything to you? Certainly what it is made of is not precious, and just as certainly it has no feeling. It transmits to you the feelings that you want. Like any communication medium, the body receives and sends the messages that it is given. It has no feeling for them. All of the feeling with which they are invested is given by the sender and the receiver. The ego and the Holy Spirit both recognize this, and both also recognize that here the sender and the receiver are the same. The Holy Spirit tells you this with joy. The ego hides it, for it would keep you unaware of it. Who would send messages of hatred and attack if he but understood he sends them to himself? Who would send messages of hatred and attack if he but understood he sends them to himself? Who would accuse, make guilty, and condemn himself? 74. The ego's messages are always sent away from you in the belief that your message of attack and guilt will someone other than yourself suffer. The ego's messages are always sent away from you in the belief that for your message of attack and guilt will someone other than yourself suffer. And even if you suffer, yet someone else will suffer more. The great deceiver recognizes that this is not so. But as the enemy of peace, and the word enemy is in quotes because there's no enemy to peace, As the enemy of peace, it urges you to send out all your messages of hate and free yourself. And to convince you this is possible, it bids the body search for pain in attack upon another, calling it pleasure or satisfaction, and offering it to you as freedom from attack. 75. Hear not its madness. Don't listen to the ego. Hear not its madness, and believe not the impossible is true. Forget not that the ego has dedicated the body to the goal of sin, and places in it all its faith that this can be accomplished. Its sad disciples chant the body's praise continually in solemn celebration of the ego's rule. Not one but must believe that yielding to the attraction of guilt is the escape from pain. Not one but must regard the body as himself, without which he would die, and yet within which is his death equally inevitable. And the last paragraph, 76, it is not given to the ego's disciples to realize that they have dedicated themselves to death. Freedom is offered them, but they have not accepted it, and what is offered must also be received to be truly given. For the Holy Spirit, too, is a communication medium, receiving from the Father and offering his messages unto the Son. Like the ego, the Holy Spirit is both the sender and the receiver. For what is sent through him returns to him, seeking itself along the way and finding what it seeks. So does the ego find the death it seeks, returning it to you. So which do you want to find? the Holy Spirit's vision of love, peace, and joy, or the ego's wish for death, sickness, pain, guilt, fear? Okay, well, the power of decision is my own. And let's keep in mind today that we have a lot of power in what we decide. Remember that for the power of decision is my own. No one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. No one can suffer pain except his choice selects this state for him. No one can grieve, nor fear, nor think him sick unless these are the outcomes that he wants. And no one dies without his own consent. Nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. Here is your world, complete in all details. Here is its whole reality for you, and it is only here salvation is. And you may believe that this position is extreme and too inclusive to be true. Yet can truth have exceptions? All right. So be sure to do your 2 5-minute practices morning and evening, and your hourly remembrance. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. The power of decision is my own. Thank you all so much for joining me. Until tomorrow, the power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be.